So now that I have discussed the unmitigated economic might of BRICS in my last video, let's talk about the infinite military power of the Collective Security Treaty Organization. In an interview broadcast on Thursday, Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan announced a halt to Armenia's involvement in the Collective Security Treaty Organization, which is led by Russia. They cited the bloc's failure to meet Armenia's expectations. So the CSTO is Russia's answer to NATO, although it only has 6 countries versus NATO's soon-to-be 32, with Hungary likely voting Sweden to join soon. Those 6 countries are Russia, Belarus, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, and Armenia. All but Russia are outside of the top 60 in global power per the Global Firepower Index. Armenia ranks 101st. Now, the reason Armenia is halting involvement in the alliance is due to the ineffectiveness of the CSTO to respond to calls from Armenia to assist in their fight against Azerbaijan. Article 4 of the Collective Security Treaty establishes that an aggression against one signatory would be perceived as an aggression against all. This is similar to NATO's Article 5, but is clearly meaningless in the CSTO. Now, it's worth noting that Armenia is not leaving the CSTO, nor will Armenia eject Russian bases from its country, because that falls under a separate agreement. This is basically Pashinyan voicing dissatisfaction with Armenia's traditional alliance with Russia, questioning the reliability of Russia's support to Armenia, and hinting that they might be reassessing their role in the CSTO. Last year, Pashinyan claimed Russia was unable to help Armenia because of its focus on the war in Ukraine. So obviously a vacuum is created here, and who will fill the void that is left by Russia? Well, last September, Armenia participated in exercises with the United States, mere months after Armenia refused to host military drills for the CSTO. Obviously, this angered Russia because Russia has sensitive military bases in Armenia, and the U.S. was in proximity to them. Now, the U.S. has been working with Armenia to assist in developing military doctrine that does not rely on Russia and coax them to distance themselves from the Kremlin. Armenia seems to be happy to oblige, as they have also made arms deals with NATO member France, as well as India, which is slowly replacing Russia as a primary arms dealer. Armenia is increasingly feeling betrayed by Russia and is seeking security elsewhere. This is just the next step. Armenia is not the only country adopting this cautious stance towards the CSTO. Likewise, Kazakhstan has been pulling away, and Kyrgyzstan abruptly canceled a CSTO military drill in October, just a day before it was supposed to start. Specifically for Kazakhstan, this represents a significant change. Just before the invasion of Ukraine in January of 2022, Kazakhstan received military support from the CSTO, led by Russia, to quell fuel protests in their country. Now, while the intervention ended protests, the Russian military never actually left Kazakhstan and still remain there to this day. The Ukraine invasion, however, marked a turning point for many CSTO members because they have memories of Soviet control and invasion and oppression. Kazakhstan announced it wouldn't recognize the Russian-backed self-declared Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republics and oppose Russian territorial ambitions in Ukraine, even sending humanitarian aid to Kyiv. Now, Kazakhstan also opted out of the 2022 Russian Economic Forum in St. Petersburg, which was a major snub to Putin. This shift mirrors changes within the Kazakh society. A lot of it has to do with demographics. 30 years ago, the Russians accounted for 37% of that country and ethnic Kazakhs for just 39%. But in the last 3 decades, the Kazakh population has grown to 70%, while the Russian population has declined to just 18%. This was fueled by the Kazakh government promoting a return of ethnic Kazakhs to their country, as well as promoting the Kazakh language, culture, and heritage, which, if you remember, was a big reason why Russia was angry with Ukraine. They want these Soviet bloc nations to focus on the Russian language, culture, and heritage, not their own. So Kazakhstan is essentially taking the same path as Ukraine at this point. Moreover, Kazakhstan has been working on strengthening its ties with the United States, which has supported it with significant aid for various sectors and seen a substantial U.S. private investment boom. Recent discussions between Secretary of State Antony Blinken and various Kazakh officials primed meetings between President Biden and the Central Asian leaders back in September, which underlines this growing relationship between these countries and the U.S., while the relationship they have with Russia is faltering. There are major geopolitical implications here. The collapse of the CSTO as a proxy of Russian power projection and control would be a significant embarrassment for Putin and the Kremlin. So we'll have to keep an eye out on how these countries continue to react to Russian snubbing, and if Russia is going to take a more hardline, angry, kinetic stance against them in the near future.